Well, hello there. That is very loud. Hello, my people. Thank you very much for coming along tonight. I really appreciate it, especially you up there. You, thanks for the miniskirt. I appreciate it. It's a dude. He's wearing jeans. Yeah. Thank you. It's really wonderful to get the opportunity to chat to you all today and to share these ideas with you. Especially at an event like this about small businesses, because in fact, I have a perpetually small business. I sometimes think that we've been sold a story that all businesses have to grow. A lot of my team is here. And I said to them in January, and I said, I really like the size of business we are. I think we're an amazing company. We were sitting in this really cool room in Cape Town, and I said to them, I don't ever want to be in a room bigger than this where I can't fit all of you in here. And so sometimes I think people think about small business in the wrong way, but I think that a lot of us, when we are businesses of this size, we care very, very deeply about what it is we do and the problems that we solve in the world. I want to share with you today how the methodology that we have for solving those problems, and I want to do that in such a way that I hope that you'll walk away with tools that perhaps that you can use to solve problems for your customers and yours. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the principle called Occam's razor. Do you know what Occam's razor is? Let me take you through it, just for those of you who don't know or are not sure, because all of you were afraid to answer unless I asked you. So let's have a look at this thing. Occam's razor is, of course, a principle of theory construction or evaluation according to which other things equal explanations that posit fewer entities or fewer kinds of entities are to be preferred to explanations that posit more. Am I right? All right. Obviously. Totally. Occam's razor, to put it simply, is when faced with two equally good hypotheses, always choose the simpler. And I think in business, we like to really make business more difficult than it is, right? We're always looking, we're always trying to think of all of these problems we can solve and what do we have to do next and how can we make our business better. I've had my business, I started when I was 22, I've just turned 48, so I've had it for over a quarter of a century, and I can tell you this one thing for true. There are few problems in business that couldn't be solved by better sales. Right? That's an absolute truth. There are few problems in your business that couldn't be solved by better sales. Now, understand this. I'm not saying necessarily more sales, because sometimes more sales aren't better. I'm saying better customers. My friend Howard Mann, he wrote a great book called Fewer Better. And he says that's what we need. We need fewer better people. We need fewer better sales. We need fewer better customers. We need fewer better of just about everything. But I think we need to solve for the sales thing. Because you see, sales is everybody's problem. We're all in sales. If you have children, you're especially in sales, right? Having kids is an exercise in sales. My son is 19 years old. My daughter is 15. Every day is a sales pitch. It's got my practice dialed in. But we need better approaches. You see, I think sales has been given a bit of a bad rap, right? I think sometimes we think about it in terms that it feels maybe something that we don't want to approach. It's something that we don't identify with. It's literally the only thing that I've ever identified with. All I have is that I can sell things. But the other day, and I posted this on LinkedIn, I was on Twitter and I was scrolling through and I saw this video on Twitter and I thought, wow, this is why people hate sales. Check this out.
I'm an elite sales warrior. I'm an elite sales warrior. I will destroy my competition. I will destroy my competition. I believe I can close anybody, anytime, any place. I believe I can close anybody, anytime, any place. Success trains, failure complaints. Success trains, failure complaints. I have no ego. I have no ego. I have no entitlement. I have no entitlement. I have no limits. I have no limits. I am ready for war. I am ready for war. Let's go.
I just came. Too much? Sure. Without a doubt, the greatest line in that entire video. I have no ego! Sorry. Shat himself. This isn't sales. I mean, it is sales, but it's not the sales we do on a day-to-day basis. Sales that we do on a day-to-day basis is just basically painting a picture of the world for other people in such a way that you change their mindsets. And because they change their mindsets, good things happen. The world refers to this as storytelling, and I think that's absolutely true. The problem is that when we work with most people, and by the way, my apologies for screaming into your mic. My bad. But the problem is that when we... This is very bad. Okay, so the problem is that, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right, there we go. Okay, we're going to hustle this old school. So the problem with storytelling is that we've been sold this story so much that all you have to do when you're selling or you're presenting or getting on stage is you have to tell a story. The problem with that is that nobody cares about your story. You've been lied to. People don't care about your story, and so I see this time and again as people show up and they get onto a stage, or people get into a sales meeting, they get on stage, hi there, how are you? And they put up an organogram of themselves, right? An organogram, if any of you have an organogram of your business structure in your sales presentation, I hate you. Your customers hate you. I want you to look, okay, when you go into your customers, ask them where their big bucket of shits are. Okay? And then go and have a dig around in their big buckets of shits. And I promise you, you will not find a single shit they give for your company structure. Okay? Have a look at your company structure. Is Elon Musk on it? No. Okay, they don't care. But that's what we've been trained to do. We've been trained to tell our story. So I wrote a book. My old business partner, Don Packett, I made the terrible mistake of asking him to write the foreword in this book. And the reason that was a mistake is, without a doubt, the foreword is the best part of the book. There's nothing more depressing than opening your book, getting out very, very excited about it, starting to read the foreword, and realizing that the first two words literally are the best. And the first two words of the book was this. He said, there are two kinds of stories in sales, yours and those that matter. And I think he's mostly right. I actually think this is true for business in general. There are two types of stories in business, yours and those that matter. And the stories that matter are other people's stories. I don't know if any of you have ever listened to the Matt Brown podcast. Any of you know Matt Brown? Years ago, I was listening to an episode of Matt's show, and he was interviewing a gentleman by the name of Tom Asseker. And Tom Asseker had written this book called I Am Keats. He's written a number of books. In fact, he's written two books called I Am Keats, confusingly. The one is more of a textbook, and the second one is this kind of allegory. And I highly recommend you check it out. At the very least, definitely check out Matt's interview with Tom. And I was listening to the podcast, and I was in Cape Town. I was on my way to Cape Town, flying down, and Tom was talking about this idea that he said, he came to this realization that every human is in a film. Every human being is in a movie. Every single one of you right now are sitting in a film. And the problem is nobody realizes that you're the star. You see, no matter what happens at the end of this, no matter what happens at the end of this presentation, you guys all go on and you're going to live to be a ripe old age. It's wonderful. You're all going to die at like 95, sleeping next to somebody more beautiful than you. Everything is going to be wonderful. You're all dying. I don't know if you know that. Spoiler alert. I'm sorry if that was a surprise. Some of you were like, what? Oh my God. I always believe that there's two lives that we live. There's the life we live before we realize we're dying and the one that we live after it. I'm certainly at the second life right now, and I think it's more fulfilling. I think in the first life, we want to build things. In the second life, we want to leave things. And I think that once you understand that, it makes this idea of living to leave a little bit more fulfilling. But no matter what happens, when you're sitting there and when your life runs out and you finally check out of this amazing world that we're in, as the credits of the movie of your life roll, all that I will be is guy on stage. Right? That's it. Like, dude who screamed next to me. Right? That's it. You need to understand one thing and one thing specifically. Right? Your job is never to be the hero. My job isn't to be the hero. Your job is to audition for a better part. That's all I'm doing up here right now. I'm trying to audition for a better part in the film of your life. And these people's films, once you understand that, it changes everything. After I landed in Cape Town that day, I was walking down the... If you want to, you can just kill this mic for me, bud. Sorry, because it's... doing weird things. Yeah, okay, but it was just going very, very echoey. How are we doing without you? Okay, now. All right, so after I landed in Cape Town there, what had happened was I was walking down that aisle. You know that long aisle after you get your luggage at Cape Town International, the domestic terminal? And it's that long, long, long passageway. Feels like it goes forever. The best thing, by the way, a short hack, when you're doing that thing, put on like a really cool song, and as you're walking, you feel like you're in a film, like you got a soundtrack going, like, yeah, what's happening? The problem is halfway down, you get interrupted. In the middle of this movie, you're walking, and like, yeah, my shit don't stink. And you're walking, and all of a sudden there's a little counter. And on that counter are two dudes. And as you walk past them, they will say the words, taxi service. And what do you say to them? You say nothing. I've seen you. I literally took a video watching other polite people. You're walking along. There's literally nothing else for you to do. It's you, nothingness, other people's loved ones. Okay? And you're walking. This guy says taxi service, and you do this. Like he farted or something, and you walked into it. I was so shocked by this because I'd just been listening to this podcast, understanding the fact that everybody lives in their own movie. And I walked past this person, he said taxi service, I ignored him, and I thought, oh my God, this is this guy's film. Every single day, that person goes to work and stands behind a counter, and every single day, he offers the service in the world to a whole bunch of people, and from the morning until the afternoon, he gets largely ignored. And I thought, I got to do better. So now, whenever I walk past, they've actually just moved that counter now to not interrupt your soundtrack walk. But as now I walk past those guys and they say taxi service, I always turn around and say, no, but thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Now they get to look at me like I farted because you're like, nah, you're not supposed to speak back. You're supposed to ignore me. Walk on by, pervo. What are you doing speaking to me? That's not how this works. So I think we need to understand this. And as soon as you understand that it's not your movie and it's their movie, you understand something fundamental. You understand that you don't have to tell them a story. What you need to do is to sell them a story in which you play a part. That's the job. The job is not to tell people stories. It's to sell them a new story of their life, of their movie, in which you are in it. As soon as they start seeing that you could form a part of their story, everything changes for you. And so all you have to do is you've got to sell them the idea of a U-shaped problem. When they think about it, they think, oh my goodness, I've got this problem. If only there was somebody that could help fix it. And then they think about you. For years, that's what we did at Missing Link. We did all of these remarkable, weird things in our office. And the only thing we wanted to do was to sell people a problem, a story about ourselves, that we were these kind of crazy, kind of wacky presentation people that could help you solve a problem if you had to stand in front of a group of people. And for years, we built our business out of the fact that somebody would be standing at a braai on a Saturday afternoon, and somebody say, shit, I'm so stressed. I've got a presentation I have to do in 2 weeks. It's really, really big. It's to my board. And then somebody will turn around and say, oh, you know who you need to speak to? You need to speak to that company called Missing Link. They're amazing. They do presentations. They'll change your world, and they'll activate audiences. And that only works because we sold them that story. We sold them the story by letting them understand that there's a world in which this is a real problem and it could be solved. You see, the other problem with sales is it doesn't solve the problem in the way that we'd like it to. I think as early as possible, we have to switch that around. We want to move from us selling to them buying. Okay, so there's that point. Like, have you ever been called to do a sales presentation? You ask them, how long do I have? And they say, 45 minutes. And then you show up and you prepare your 45-minute slide presentation. But of course, you shouldn't do that. You should be presenting for a third of the meeting because you want to be, when you're talking, you're selling, but when they're asking, they're buying. And when they're buying, that's a way better place for you to be in. So that's what we always want to do. And this is one of the core reasons that I decided to write the book, Here Be Dragons. My man. The book, Here Be Dragons, because I knew that this was a problem worth solving. Now, this is a book, ostensibly, that covers the topics around storytelling. Like, it definitely is something that I wanted to address. The problem is, when I looked at the traditional models around storytelling, I was frustrated by them because they all follow the same kind of path, the same tropes. And it's no coincidence because, in fact, these tropes are based on a trope. That trope is called the hero's journey. And, of course, it talks about the idea that we have to put the hero, the customer at the center of everything we do. And while I agree with that, to Sandila's point earlier, I absolutely do agree we have to. I think we've got to understand that the hero doesn't know what they want. And when I understood this was something that blew me away. So there's a reason that the book isn't called Here Be Heroes, because I think that would be problematic. Like, I want you to think about this story, and you all, I imagine most of you are pretty familiar with it, but this story here, and this guy here, his name's Luke Skywalker. He is, for a living, a moisture farmer. Right? That's what he does. He farms moisture. I mean, if you get nothing else from today, know that your job isn't that bad, okay? This guy, happily going through his life, living with his aunt and uncle, farming moisture day in, day out. But he was never going to change. The only reason he changed is because this guy showed up. It was this dude that made Luke Skywalker's story interesting. It was this person, Darth Vader, that is the reason we have the film. And I thought, there's something to this. Because this individual, this Darth Vader character, could call the hero to action, could get somebody to move, to get somebody to do something that they didn't want to do when they woke up that very morning. And that's your job in sales. Our job is to convince people to do something that we want them to do, that we think that they need, that they hadn't thought about first thing in the morning. And so I realized when it came down to sales, it was less about selling the hero. Oh, thank God, I'm knackered. I just needed a chair. Woo! Thanks, man. He was thinking, how can I get out of here in the most subtle way possible? When he's speaking about Darth Vader, I'll exit to the left. I showed him. He is the CEO of the sponsor, isn't he? You do you. I love you. So this is my last time on the stage. I may as well enjoy it as much as humanly possible. I'm considering flashing. I'm not going to do that. So I believe the dragon is what makes it interesting. And I refer to this as the dragon because the problem with this archetype of the villain is that it's very, very limiting. Thank God you came back, because I was really thinking that I thought, oh my God, I bombed. Oh, woo! So the problem with the idea of the villain is it is quite a limiting concept, because it kind of just assumes that there is something bad that's happening, and only something bad will cause us or call us to action. But I didn't think that was strictly true. That's a very, very nice Hollywood trope. But of course, we move for very, very different reasons. And so I went with this idea of a dragon because I identified the fact there are 3 dragons. The first is the namesake of the book itself, and that for me is the dragon of discovery. People move to find greatness. People move to chase adventure. You know, in the maps of old, days gone by, there were these old maps that sailors would navigate from. And as you know, in the corner of those maps, there was a little sea serpents or dragons drawn. And the term at the bottom was hic sunt dracones. Here be dragons. And what that term means is it means that we all know the dragons exist. They're out there somewhere, but we just don't know where they are. And as brave, intrepid explorers, we will face those dragons. We will go out there and find new lands, and all glory will come to us because we discovered them. There's an entirely massive group of people that the dragon that they want is to discover something new, the innovators of the world. For many of you here, that is what you want. You want to be seen as the innovators. You don't just want to solve problems. You want to do new stuff for the businesses you're in. This is your dragon. And if I can help you get there, we're going to do business together. The next one for me is the more obvious one. This is the dragon of catastrophe. This is the dragon that is attacking the village that you live in. Now I look around, I see some of you are of age. Earlier on, when you were shouting bold, 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 I was like, oh my God, I thought you noticed. My wife has me pouring rosemary oil in my head, I don't know if she thinks I'm attractive, but I am delicious every day. So we're going to do a sense check. If I do get invited back a year from now, we can see how we're progressing with the rosemary oil. Anyway, I digress. Seriously, rosemary oil right now is the dragon of catastrophe. Is my wife telling me, bro, you don't have the face for baldness. Steve Stabs over there is a tall glass of water. Look at that man. He's gorgeous. He makes bald sexy, right? I don't have bald, but like, if I look like him, this shit's gone. I'm going like this. My man. Yes. But this is the dragon of catastrophe, and if this means that I have to go and put rosemary oil, and I literally have a little like roller lawnmower thing that I drive over my head to stimulate the follicles. Honestly, you can overstimulate your follicle. What are you doing? Shut up, I'll be right there. 5 more minutes! For God's sake, woman, just shut up! Send pictures! Yeah. That's the first time I've tried that on stage. I'm not sure. Kevin, remind me that's a loser. But this is the dragon of catastrophe. Well, I digressed. My point was, some of you are old AF like me, and you'll remember the millennium bug. Do you all remember the millennium? Some of you even bought software. For like, how crazy is this? Guys, the world's going to end. I've got software, though, that will stop it. And big businesses that we trust with their life savings are like, that sounds legit. Get that on our servers now. I don't smoke, drink, or take drugs. Not since I was like in my early 20s, 21, 22. But I may have got a little bit goofed on New Year's Eve on 1999. I figured, well, hey, if it's going to end. Nothing happened, but what an amazing sales pitch. The next time you saw a sales pitch so good was in March of 2020 when Zoom showed up. Hey! Right? It was amazing. This will drive us to action, but for most of us, that is not our approach. We are not selling dragons of catastrophe. If you're in life insurance, fantastic. If not, probably the one will motivate you is the next one. You see, human beings are motivated by 2 things. We're motivated by fear, and we're motivated by greed. Turns out, we want cool things. And the final one for me is this. It is the dragon of opportunity. In this case, the dragon is simply the obstacle that is sitting in front of the cave that contains everything that you want. When we work with our customers and we sit there and we go through this whole story-selling process with them, helping them figure out what their sales narrative is, this is the one, more often than not, is that their customers, when we can figure out what their customers really want, they win. And here's the trick. Your customer doesn't know. Your customer does not know what it is they want. You think they do, but they don't. Generally speaking, when it comes to your space, they don't. And in fact, if you ask them, they'll give you a trope. You've got to dig deeper. You've got to find it out. In my mind, again, I own a presentation company. We help people present better. Don't judge what my company does based on me doing bad jokes about follicles, okay? That's what we do. But nobody wants it. It is the hardest product in the world to sell because everybody thinks they're amazing at it. It's incredible to me that we live in a world where nothing couldn't be improved by better presentations, like your business could be. But when we ask people, hey, do you need help? They're like, nah, I'm all good, bro. Right, guys, slide 6. I just want to take you through how we leverage economies of scale. Literally, if you say economy of scale, I die inside every time. Hi there, guys. Here is a picture of a hand holding a leaf. Here's what you have. If you're in sales, and we're all in sales, when you're selling ideas to other human beings, you have 2 ideas, 2 jobs to do. Job number 2 is very, very simple. You have to help them slay the dragon. And if you are good at your job, that is exactly what you will do. The real challenge is job number 1, and that is to make sure that they see the dragon in the first place, because your customers don't. And the mistake we make is a mistake that sales professionals have told us time and time and time again, because they assume your customer knows that they want what you're selling. And they all say to us, guys, just as long as you remember, don't sell features, sell benefits. Is there anyone here who's never heard that before? Yeah, of course you have, because that's what they say time and time again, but it's not helpful. I want you to imagine that I own an ambulance business, and it's outside, it's parked outside, and anybody who wants to can have a ride in my ambulance. It's just 1,000 rand. Who's got 1,000? Guys, if you all throw money at me at once, I can't hear. 1,000 rand is a problem. Oh, sorry, my bad. Let me tell you about the features. Features are amazing. It's got like a go faster stripes on it. It's got one of the siren things. Pretty incredible. Works really, really well. 950? No? Okay, so benefits. It's got a defibrillator inside, one of those clear things. So if your heart stops, we can resuscitate you. Also, a lot of fun if you're pissed, I've heard, right? Trained paramedics, relationships with all the top hospitals. I mean, guys, these are benefits. Skip the queue. It's like the Discovery Health line at the airport, but for sick people. 850? Huh, tough crowd. Here's the deal. You don't sell the features and the benefits of the ambulance. You sell the accident. If you sell the accident, the ambulance will sell itself. Right, I am a motorcyclist. You know who I'm not a very good one, so I have fallen off. Right? You know who I've never negotiated fees with? The ambulance driver. Hey man, you want to go on my ambulance? Absolutely. How? 10 grand. Nah, bro. You got to haggle. You've got to haggle. 20 shekels. What was that a reference to? Life of Brian, thank you so much. You may have another version of that man's book. I'd give you a copy of mine. But I've got this theory that people, if I gave it to you, you just wouldn't read it. I'm going to make you pay for it. Let me tell you my theory quickly. This is like telling you a story. When you give somebody your book, and again, I thought, by the way, this is with love, because absolutely, I thought that was an amazing thing. And if ever there was a person who managed to get a crowd going before I got on stage, it was this guy. So thank you so much. But I've got a caveat. And my caveat is, if I give you the book, the investment for you was zero. So the investment is you reading my book and telling me it's nice. Now you feel like, oh my God, I've got to read that guy's book. He gave it to me. That's a problem. But if you pay for the book, the return on investment is you reading the book. So buy my book. Okay, so thank you, all three of you. So this is what we got to figure out. We got to figure out what the dragon is. For me, when we understand for our business, our customers only seem to go through three of them. And all my job is to engineer. When I'm selling to somebody, and again, this is the worst sales pitch I could ever do, because when I'm selling somebody on our story setter process, all I've got to do is get them to admit to one of three dragons, one of three problems that they solve. The first is if I can make them believe that they have a commodity problem, that people perceive them to be a commodity, we could help. The second is if their salespeople are inconsistent, then I can explain that away. And the third is if they feel that their customers are lacking urgency, well, then that's possibly something as well. Why are they not closing? This is what I want you to come up with. You've got to land with the three things, three problems you can solve for your customers, and you're ask them questions until such time as they identify one of those. Then you start speaking. You see, I said to you earlier that if you were asked to speak for 45 minutes, you would only speak for 15 of those. The first 15 minutes, you are asking questions. You ask, you listen, you diagnose, and you prescribe. You're trying to get them to your three big words, the three dragons that you can help them slay. Once you understand which one of the problems that you uniquely solve in their business, then you go into your presentation component. Then you're going to speak for the next 15 minutes. And finally, when you finish, you're going to answer questions for them again. At this point, you're no longer selling, they're buying. You're just kind of removing the friction. So how do we start with that? Well, I believe that there's one question that you could ask any one of your customers at the beginning of every single meeting you do from this day forward, and I believe it will give you an unfair advantage for the rest of the sales meeting, and it's a very, very simple one. Here's how I do this. When I'm having a sales meeting, I always start the same way. So all of our meetings are on Zoom because we like to deal with companies all over the world. All of our meetings generally are 30 minutes, so we do 10, 10, and 10. And I'll sit there and I'll jump onto the call. Hey, everybody, hi, lovely to see you. I'll introduce the team and, get a bit about them first minute or so. And I say, okay, here's how I think this meeting should run. Stop me if you have any problems with it. I'm going to start off, and I'm going to ask you some questions, just understand a little bit about your business and what's happening. Then, if it makes sense, and with your permission, I'm going to do a short 10-minute presentation on who we are and how I think we can help solve that problem. And finally, I'm going to flip the mic over to you. I'm going to answer any questions you have, and then we're going to decide if we're going to do business today. How does that sound to you? You know what they say? They say, that sounds great. Now, there's two things that have happened here. Number one, I've taken control of the meeting, and your customers will thank you for that. It's very, very frustrating that most people don't. But most importantly, I have planted the seeds that at the end of this meeting, we're deciding if we're going to do business. It's amazing. I know you don't want to admit you're in sales, but if you're speaking to a customer, you are in sales. So why hide from that fact? I think I may have just had a little spit on your toe. I apologize for that. I got so excited. I possibly missed, but maybe get a mask. Okay. So, what? It's your turn now. So, as soon as they agree upon that, I then say to them this. And if there's only one thing you take away from this presentation today, please take this away with you and please try it out. After that, I turn around and I say to them, but before we get started, I have just one question. And that question is this. Nobody needs another Zoom call in their life right now. So why was this the right time for us to have this conversation? This line alone is magical. You know why? Because they will tell you. Nobody will say, oh, no man, I had nothing better to do. Just wanted to kill 30 minutes in your Zoom room. They will explain to you. So they might say something like, oh, well, I saw something in your email that was interesting, and I thought maybe we should chat. And you say to them, what in my email was interesting? What compelled you to pay me 30 minutes of your time so that we could have this conversation? And they'll tell you. Right? And it's amazing because people don't like to feel that they're showing up without a cognitive reason for it. So when you say to them, why was this the right time for us to have this meeting? They're telling you two bits of information. Bit of information number one, they're telling you that they need to have this. And bits of information number two, they're telling you that now is the right time for this conversation to happen. The biggest frustration that our clients have is long sales cycles. Customers who are interested in their product, who they know need their product, but who are not signing on the line that is dotted. And the reason they're not doing that is we have failed to impart the urgency that they need what it is we've got. This question solves for this because they explain to you why now is the right time. I promise you, this is the number one bit of feedback I've gotten from this book, is people come back to me and saying, bro, that Dragon Hunter question is gold. I challenge you to try it. And there's a mistake that we're making though. And the number one mistake that we make is we get caught up selling the category that we are in. Most salespeople do a brilliant job of selling the very thing that their competitors do as well. And I think we've got to change that. But in order to change that, I think we've got to reframe what it is we do inside the category we're in. I remember years ago, I used to watch Pop Idols when it first came on with Ant and Dec, and then in South Africa as well. And Simon Cowell would always say to the singers, they would come on stage and always say to them, you know, you're a good singer, but you don't have the X factor. And I remember thinking, this is a weird thing, this X factor. What is it? What is the X factor? What is he talking about? And I'd never stopped to think that if there is a X factor, then there must be a Y factor as well. And of course, when you think about it, it makes perfect sense. The Y factor is that they can sing. Right? The Y factor is that they have the raw talent it takes to be standing in front of a show like this and to be able to deliver a song. The X factor is something else. The X factor is that they have a special quality about them, a quality that makes people want to be part of them, that gravitates people towards them. And that's what you need to figure out. Your category is the why, but the X factor is why people are going to do business with you. You are here. This is where you exist. This is the destination in which people want to do business with you at, but you're not telling them. You know, I've been in New York City many, many times. It's probably the city I've visited the most outside of South Africa. And it's funny, it gets a bad rap because people are always saying that New Yorkers are unfriendly, and I don't see it that way. In fact, if you walk up, if you're ever standing there looking lost, like you're kind of looking around for where you are, I guarantee you a New Yorker will walk up to you because they're very proud of their city and say, "Hey, my man, can I help you? Where are you trying to go to?" And you'll tell them, "I'm trying to go to the Apple store." And they won't give you the address. They won't say it's at 359 such and such. What will they tell you? They will tell you 2 blocks. They will tell you it is at the corner of this and this. It's on the corner of 5th Avenue and East 47th Street. And that's so much data there, and they all understand it because you know which way you've got to go. You know what district it's in, what the other shops are around there. You know so much information around what it is they're doing. If they've given you just the data point, we're at 591 5th Avenue, that's 8 kilometers of street. It's not enough, but that's what we give our customers. We just say, we are on 5th Avenue. We are in photocopier machines. Logo is blue. Right? That's not enough. There has to be something more. They don't know their intersection, and if they don't know your intersection, they can't find you. And the reason they don't know your intersection is because you don't know your intersection. You've not taken enough time to discover it, and I think you have to. This works. Hollywood uses this all the time. If you're trying to pitch a movie to Hollywood, they want an intersection from you. So they might, on the top of a pile of screenplays, there might be one day that said, it's Braveheart, but in ancient Rome. That movie got made. What was it called? Gladiator. Not to be confused with Gladiator. Which is a very different kind of film. I needed you guys to laugh so I could blow my nose. You're welcome. If you know your intersection, magical things happen. When they know your intersection, magical things happen for you. Uber was amazing. It's a fantastic example. Uber was a taxi, but on an app. Now that seems very, very common now. It doesn't even seem remarkable. But when it first happened, it was absolutely incredible. I can call a taxi from an app. We went from being a society of people that actually didn't get cabs. Most of us didn't call for a cab from Rose Taxis. It wasn't something we used day in, day out, and then it changed. Volvo, of course, when they launched it, they existed at the intersection of cars and safety. It was amazing, incredible. This guy here, his name is Ite Talgum. He is a speaker. This is him on the TED stage. I've seen him speak twice, once at TED and once at a conference called Picnic. And he speaks about leadership. But he's never run a business. In fact, he's a very interesting speaker of leader because I think he gives the single best leadership talk you will ever watch. And I recommend you watch the longer one, the 45-minute one on Picnic. But what makes him interesting is he is a leader, but also a conductor. He is the conductor of the Tel Aviv Orchestra. And if you think about it, it makes so much logical sense. Who better to speak to us about leadership? And in fact, Sasfin as well, our host today. I've been a member of an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, for years. And if you ask me where they existed, it's very, very simple. They exist on the intersection. They sponsored and promoted us and were amazing partners for years. They exist at the intersection, for me, of banking and entrepreneurship. That's it. That's what they own. That's their space. When you can figure out what your space is, the right kind of customers will seek you out. Our business, when we started, we knew that we wanted to be in presentations. It was very, very simple. The problem was nobody cared. People didn't want presentations. Everybody thinks they have it dialed in. It's not sexy, right? If you ever want to get laid, if you're single, do not put, I'm going to refer to this again later, that your work in PowerPoint on your CV. It's not sexy. So we had to make people understand that there was more to it. So we wanted to exist in an intersection of presentations and unconventional. So we built a different kind of world. We had these offices. We had a tattoo studio inside our office called Missing Ink, where we tattooed our customers for free. Because you know what? You'll forget the guy who gives you the branded pen. Guys, if it's branded, it is an advert, not a gift. I'm going to leave that there for you, right? But if we had a shooting range, we had like a slide, it was cool. I had a stretch limousine for years. I was so excited. My customers didn't want to come to our office. We built these cool offices, they didn't want to come. So I bought a limousine, I put flames down the side of it. We drove there, we picked them up, we gave them chocolate Super M's. Our chauffeur was a guy called Jabu, and Jabu gave them presentation lessons as they were driving. We had these two little flags, you know those flags that look like triangles, like that. But it was actually, we can't do this anymore, I understand. I'd like to wholeheartedly apologize. They were breasts. Okay, so I had these two little flapping boobs in the wind that would go because that's where boobs should be. Oh, shame. Are you offended? That's on you. Okay, so, but in most of it, we made presentations because that's what it is we did. We lived on the intersection of presentations and unconventional. Now we want to change. We want to live on the intersection of unconventional presentations and structure and things. Like we're reinventing your business. We spend time obsessing over this intersection, and you need to too. Right? You need to understand what you're going to exist on there. I want to challenge you all to define your intersections. And in order to do that, you need to first stop and think about your UPS. Not your USP. Mark just talked to us about USPs, unique selling proposition. Useful, but could be better. For me, a UPS, the unique problem only you can solve, that's a better place to play. The UDS, the unique dragon only you can slay. Sales is hard enough for you if you're competing with 5 other people. I want to turn every sales meeting I'm ever in into a 2-horse race. Us versus the best of the other 4. So how do I do that? If somebody comes to me thinking that they want pretty slides, we convince them that they don't have a slide-shaped problem. Because I know all my competitors are going to be selling them that. We convince them they might have a narrative problem or something else. And then, if they believe me, I've won. If they don't, well then fine, let them go and choose from the best of the other 4. But the odds are stacked in your favor when you do that. So you need to figure out what is the unique problem within our category that only we can solve. And then all you have to do is shine a light on that dragon. If you can figure out what that problem is, then your customers will beat their way down towards you. So, it starts by finding out what you're going to war with. What problem you want to solve in the world. If you can figure out what problem you want to solve in the world, magical things will truly happen for you. So I want to leave you with a tool, a device, something that you can use today when you're networking, because this is a business and networking event. So afterwards you can network, give people your cards. Top tip, you don't want to give people your cards who you want to do business with. You want to take people's cards who you want to do business with. There is no onus on the person you've given the card to phone you. Right? I made a mistake once. Let me tell you my worst mistake I've ever made in my life. I'm going to digress for maybe 2 minutes, but I'm deeply troubled. I was once lucky enough to do a gig with will.i.am. We got on so well. He was so complimentary. He actually asked the organizer to sit me next to him at the dinner. will.i.am. Have any of you ever had that? No. Cough. So, we get in there, we're chatting. I actually called out Aki, was interviewing him. I was giving him shit. Then they called me at the back, and I shouted something, and will.i.am was like, that's what he does. That's my man. That's what he does. I was like, he said, that's me. At the end, we were doing like a book signing thing, and I had to go because I actually had another gig. He didn't, so... And as I was walking out, I went up to him and said, hey, Will, man, bro, it was so rad working with you. Thank you so much. He was like, dude, give me your card. We got to get into contact. We got to stay in touch. Did you feel this? I'm like, yes. So I gave him my card. And I was so excited. And I floated back to the office. And I walked in. I said to Don, Don, will.i.am asked you for my card. He was like, good story, bro. Did you get his? I was like, no. He's never going to call you. He never called. I went. He never called. I don't understand it. I feel wounded, okay? I went, and I got 3 words. I said I didn't want to be that guy, like, yeah, give me yours, you know? Which is so ridiculous, because when a peer asked you for your card, you could ask him for his back. So I went and got these 3 letters tattooed on me. FYP. The Y stands for your. The P stands for pride. I will leave you to figure out the F. So, I want to leave you with a tool today that you can use when you're chatting about what it is that you do, chatting about the problem you solve in the world. And I also want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to go to your team and to ask anybody in your team to fill out this formula. It's very simple. It's 2 lines. And it started because of a book that I wanted to buy. You see, my hero is a guy called Seth Godin. I'm a big fan of Seth Godin. Do any of you know him? I mean, Steve dresses like him. Seth Godin is a wonderful author. In fact, he gets not nearly enough credit for the ideas he's had. The reason we refer to memes as memes and not items of biology is because of his book, Survival is Not Enough. The reason we refer to it as viral marketing or going viral is because of his book, Unleashing the Idea Virus. I was a big fan for years, and then he released this book called Purple Cow, but what was amazing about it is the book, 11,000 copies of it were getting made in a milk box, in a milk carton. You could only buy them 11 at a time, and you could only get them from his website. Otherwise, you had to get the regular copy of the book. I logged in the following morning after it was launched, and they were sold out. And I was like so frustrated, so I sent him an email, seth@sethgodin.com. He always replies. And I sent him a mail, said, Seth, I'd really like to have a copy of your book. Is there any way, please, it would be amazing. And he said, well, I'm holding a private event for 20 people in my office in New York in a week on Thursday. If you arrive, I'll give you a copy of my book myself. So, challenge accepted. I got onto a plane. I flew off to New York. I was feeling great about myself. I was feeling like actually a bit pimping. I get onto the plane. I was still in my kind of douchebag years when I was buying fancy cars. I now drive a Vespa. Okay, you can't take yourself too seriously with a Vespa. Honestly, Vespas are one of those devices that the movie in your head, in my head when I'm on it, I'm like, well, in the morning, it's this guy, ciao bella. Hey. What all of you guys see is this. But I'm on the plane, I'm flying Virgin's upper class. Have you ever flown Virgin's upper class? It is badass. They give you pajamas when you get on the plane. You walk around looking like ninjas, and they've got its own bar. I don't drink, but I was there asking for a Virgin. They've heard that joke so many times. It was just an incredible experience. And I'm standing there, and when you take off, you actually take off with your feet up. So I had my feet on the ottoman, and I was watching that DVD, Lincoln Park Live in Texas. Have any of you seen it? Right, it's incredible. That's for Chester Bennington, my man. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this video, and I was like having the best time ever, as you do. And this flight attendant walked up to me and she said to me, "Excuse me, sir, sorry. The team and I were wondering." And I look over, and there was like 3 other people from the team, like, "Oh, hello." She's like, "The team and I were wondering, are you in a band?" I'm not here to promote lying. However, in this one instance, if another human being walks up to you at any point in your life and asks you the question, "I'm sorry, are you in a band?" Yes! That is the only acceptable answer. Yes, I am. Thank you so much for asking. I will be in that cubicle in all of 3 minutes. And out again in 4. But like, that is the thing. You can only answer yes. I accidentally, made a mistake of saying, "No, actually, I'm a presentation strategist." You could see the disgust on her face. She was like when you get a bad Christmas present, "Oh my God, thank you. I'll get your tea." I didn't get tea. And I realized I have a good job. Like, my elevator pitch is good. Like, if somebody asks me I'm proud of what it is we do. I think we solve a meaningful, big problem in the world. But people didn't believe it. I thought, I've got to come up with a better way of describing this. There's got to be a better way for people to know what it is we do. By the time I landed in JFK, I'd come up with a system. And the system I want to share with you today, and it's just 2 lines. From now on, anytime that anybody asks me what it is you do, it's very, very simple. I start with, well, you know how when you, and I end with, well, what I do is. And it turns out that formula, you know how, what, when you, well, when I do is, can solve problems for every single one of you. When anybody asks you tonight, what is it you do, you're going to answer with this frame. It is super easy. You first of all start with the problem you solve in the world. What, you know how, when you, the problem that you have, well, what I do is, and then you go into the solution. You start with the dragon, you end with the weapon. So for me, it's always been very, very simple. When somebody now asks me what it is I do, I no longer say, I'm a presentation strategist. I say, you know how when you're standing in front of a group of people, and you have something fundamentally important to tell them, and you know that that thing is something that they all need to hear, and yet, as you're on that stage, looking out, all you see is this ocean of dull, bored, lifeless faces. Do you know that feeling? And then nod at them, because people can't help it, they nod back. Yeah. Well, what I do is I make sure that never happens to you again. Myself and my team will work with you to make sure that when you get onto that stage, you have got a narrative structure that has been carved out to solve the very, very specific problem that it is that you solve. Then, we're going to make sure that the visuals that appear behind you are only ones that complement what it is you're saying, not get in the way and compete with you. But finally, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is work with you as a speaker. So when you get on that stage, you drag the audience, grab them by the throat, and you drag them to the end of that presentation with their attention still intact, which is, I hope, where I've got you guys to. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for having me. Have a great night.